On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, Freeze is not dead. Will red dots bring back point shooting? Banning shotguns and exotic cars, and a duck boat tour goes wrong. Good morning, everybody. This is Marky and Freeze, and this is episode 101 of the John1911 Podcast. How's it going, Grumpy Freeze?
Pretty good.
I have to confess, because we talked for a few minutes before we started recording this morning, and we had a team member whose wife passed very unexpectedly last week, and so the services were yesterday, and we posted, not really anything directly about it. We don't really talk about that publicly, but it was obvious that there was a funeral going on, and somebody rolled in and said, "Is Freeze okay?" And you're like, how come I'm the one that has to die? How come I'm the one that has to be the crabby old man?
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? I mean, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm glad he's okay. Podcast wouldn't be the same without a grumpy old man." What the fuck?
Well, you're grumpy now and talking about it, so it's okay. Hey,
I'm
look,
not grumpy. I'm just a little salty. That's all.
If I'm the douchey mall ninja, you're the grumpy fud. Okay, that's just who we are in life. So, so yeah. Well, we had a team member. It's really sad. It's nothing, because his wife just wasn't feeling well. Went to the hospital, and I don't want to go into all of it, but it didn't seem to be cancer, and it just over like 2 weeks got worse and worse, and ended up having to transfer her, and she passed. And it's really hit everybody kind of hard, because it's just so out of the blue, and young woman, I mean, relatively speaking, especially for like how old a lot of members of her family typically live. So she was in her late 60s, but it just wasn't something anybody saw coming, and it just really kind of hit everybody really hard. So that was, that's what's been going on. Plus, just other stuff, tons of other stuff. So
Sure. Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, it's always a sad situation.
It is. So we haven't talked about this. I'll go ahead and tell you. Spoke to the contractor this morning about the range. I haven't been out there. He's apparently knocked down 4 more feet off. He's got the D8 running again. Not that a D8 doesn't run, but a machine that heavy, when you use it as much as we're using it, needs regular maintenance. So they take advantage of things like holidays to do things like swap out oil filters and do stuff like that. So they've apparently knocked down 4 feet off the middle finger, and they're trying to grade it on the backside towards the 3rd finger. So I haven't seen it. I don't know if I'll get it out there today, because I have my 2nd round of surgery today at 2:45, and I won't be in any shape this afternoon, I imagine, to go out there and to see what's going on. So I'll have to run up there tomorrow.
I don't think you're going to be going out there today.
So, but it is what it is, and that's kind of where we're at. Everything kind of took a break because it's a holiday, and with the 4th of July.
Sure.
And I wasn't going to demand that these guys work. They're family guys, so it's fine. So they did a little bit, but it is what it is. Hey, the future is now. Houston PD has announced that they are allowing patrol officers to use a red dot pistol as their issued weapon. I think that, there may be other departments or agencies that are doing that, but I'm not privy to any of it. That was the first one I've seen publicly made that way. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see see how that goes, because, a lot of people are predicting that the future of handguns is optics, red dots or some kind of illuminated, parallax-free, non-magnified sighting system on top of handguns. But one of the downsides is, I think a lot of people that don't run red dots or have no experience with them on handguns, it's not really an issue too much with rifles, because rifles always present the same way because of the stock. If you're trained to shoot a handgun and you push that gun out, you pick up the sights as you push the gun out. That's kind of how it works. And there are people that what they'll do is they'll push the gun out and they'll keep the front of the muzzle elevated, then drop the muzzle into the rear sight plane. They'll I push out, other people drop out. I suspect that the drop is a little bit faster. People that I think those people, they pick it up a little bit faster than the way I was trained. But what ends up happening is a lot of people, they go from shooting with iron sights, and then they get a red dot, and they're like, I don't have to do all that shit anymore. And they throw the gun up, and they can't find the dot. And it's going to be really interesting to see how an emergency, under close, close range emergency use, how a red dot's actually going to work. Because nobody, and this is it, you can talk Army, military, special forces, whatever, all you want, but nobody runs handguns more thoroughly and under more stress than the American law enforcement officer.
Well, hey, look, they're going to shoot their 96 rounds every time they pull and discharge their gun. So,
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it matter?
But there's always like a crew of like the 2% of a police department. If it's a big city department that's working the bad neighborhoods, they're working the third shifts, they're working the power shifts, and they're the ones getting all the runs, all the serious runs. And those guys are involved in a fair amount of engagements. They present guns, they point guns at people every day. And it's well known, like, some of the major cities, say, within 100 miles of us, if you're a young cop and you want to be a cop and you want the action, yeah, you join the big city department and you work in third shift or power shift. Power shift is typically like 9 to, or be like 8 to 4 in the morning. So like they double up because that's when all the runs are. And you're busier than a 1-hour paper hanger. They're just, it's constant horseshit working in the tough neighborhoods in third shift.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. The district that I work in is where, if you're right out of the academy and you want to get into the shit right away and get the most experience and the most, hands-on, action, it's a district I work in,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Because
it's getting worse over there.
Oh yeah, every day.
Yeah.
But look, here's the thing with the red dot. I'm not so much worried about acquisition and how they're going to handle it. I'm worried about how they're going to hold up, what kind of a holster they're going to put them in, and how durable they're going to be the first time they, 2 or 3 cops pile on a guy and wrestle around on the ground.
It's going to be, I can already answer that for you. There's Safari Land. There's a bunch of level 3 retention holsters that are cut to accept red dots. Some of them you can get holsters where they'll cover the red dot, some of them not. But see, that's also another thing, you're working all night in the snow or you're working all night in the rain, you pull that gun up, that window, it could either be very busy with a bunch of rain droplets in it, maybe put Rain-X on it, or it could be, maybe covered in snow or mud. It may not, a window may not be there. It's everybody's horse shitting and talking right now. They've been talking about red dots for years, but you put those on the duty belts of non-gun enthusiasts that are working third shift power law enforcement, that's where the rubber's going to meet the road. I'll tell you what, that's going to be, I'm going to watch that one. That's going to be really interesting. But it's also going to be interesting long term. Think about this. Because again, a lot of our listeners in particular, because they're gun guys, they don't understand this. They don't realize there's lots and lots of cops out there that to them, a gun is no different than, you know, learning every other aspect of their job. They're not gun people. So you could have cops whose entire experience with handguns after, say, like an entire career is a red dot handgun. You know, like 20 years from now. It's going to be interesting. It's the future is now. It's interesting.
We'll see how it pans out. My main thing is reliability and durability.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah,
and look, and I'm not trying to say, you know, red dots are crap and they won't take abuse, but you know, again, you know, it's like you said, it's raining, it's snowing. You have to chase someone through the woods, and you have to tackle them and wrestle them around, and you got, you know, I mean, you know how it is.
Oh, you're in more fur balls and pig piles than you are gunfights as a cop. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, it's
so how are the red dots going to hold up to that? Not saying will the red dot crap out, but you know, it's there's a lot more to it.
There is a lot more to it. You know, I mean. Have I shot handguns or red dots? I most certainly have, especially where I used to work. There were a lot of guys that ran them, folks that ran them, I guess. You know, are not getting any younger, and I'm not to the point yet that I can justify maybe having to go to a red dot. I'm still doing just fine, you know, but maybe, who knows? It depends. If my vision totally falls off a cliff, you know, I mean, you know, maybe, you know, there are people out there, they simply, nothing they do, they can't see that front sight. It just can't. So it's like, well, okay, maybe it's red dot time.
Well,
you know, so
there's a big difference shooting a red dot on the range and actually using one as a working gun. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. So
yeah. Because, I mean, I can just hear a bunch of guys out there now, oh, I shoot red dots all the time, and they're great, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yeah, but, you know, you shoot them on a range and in no adverse conditions. You know, it is, you know, and I'm not saying that they're not going to work out. I'm just saying I'm going to be real interested to see how they hold up in real-world, real-life situations. That's all.
Yeah, you know, I think, there are certainly a lot of people who are very versed on the red dot game because they've been running them full time in adverse conditions. You know, I guess I probably saw the first guy with the red dot. It's 2018. It's seriously no joke. I knew a guy that was like serious about red dots on handguns, and he was a very early adopter, and he's a SWAT guy at least 15 years ago, maybe 18, 19 years ago.
Yeah, but it's a numbers game over time, you know.
He's not an average. He's a SWAT ninja enthusiast.
Yeah, there's a big difference between, you know, 15 guys on a 1,000-man force running red dots opposed to 1,000 men on a 1,000-man force running red dots. Again, you know, those 15 guys may not have any problem at all, but, you know, again, it's a numbers game. We'll see, you know, if they start issuing them to everyone, we'll see how they hold up. You know, the first time you get into a gunfight and your red dots crap because you were in the middle of wrestling around in the mud before you got into the gunfight, and there's a big clump of grass over your red dot. You know,
Point shooting all of a sudden becomes very in vogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the worst time to master a new skill is in the middle of a gunfight.
but you know what? And this is something no one talks about. Is the truth is, in close up gunfights like that, it's point shooting most of the time. So
yeah. They don't know. It's maybe point shooting is the phrase that triggers everybody, but it's a form of, high pectoral index. It's basically point shooting, and
well, sure it is.
But you can call it whatever you want, but it's a form of point shooting.
No one takes the time to get into a weaver stance at 15 feet. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, people.
No one at 15 feet says, "Hold on while I might draw my revolver and do cup and saucer." It's that's just not real world.
Yeah, if here and that's it. But you know what? You're making a really good point. See, here's something this is one of the boogeymen in the firearms training community. There's a couple boogeymen. Like the one of them is. Thousands of people every year successfully defend themselves using firearms with zero training whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? So you don't need to be qualified to successfully defend yourself in a gunfight with a gun. You just don't. Now, the training community doesn't want to hear that, but that's the reality. But the other thing is, and this is interesting too, there's, and I hate to use the phrase point shooting because it's so loaded, but there is, people are starting to look, I can't remember, is it like some of the early, really successful, gunfight guys who, say from like the 20s or the, 30s. Yeah, I say from like the 40s back through maybe like the late 1890s. A lot of those guys are in gunfights at extremely close ranges.
Yeah. And
what they were engaging in was, I can't prove it because I wasn't there and nobody filmed it, but in many cases, it would appear to be a version of point shooting. Yeah. Is it like, who's the guy? He didn't die that long ago. He's the cop from New York. What's his name? He was like involved in gunfights. Like he had like 3-on-1. No.
I don't know. You said cop from New York. I just immediately thought of Serpico. So
I can't. But basically, they would set up. There would be they were running they were running their cat teams. So there would be an area where there would be a peak of violent crime, and they basically would go and set a trap. And this guy was involved. He was like the main trap guy, and he was involved in a fair amount of shootings, and like inside of bodegas or in very small spaces. And a lot of times it was simply he won gunfights basically because he was shot first. He was able to get the gun up, gun in play faster. And if you probably boil that down to its most basic level, he's point shooting that motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, he's clearing his holster and he's, shooting from the hip. I don't know. Call it what you want.
Yeah. I don't think he was doing that woman, his daughter follows us. Who's the cowboy action guy? He wasn't speed rocking out of a holster, but he basically was pulling a gun up, and he basically was pointing it, boom, 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 and that's how he would shoot the qualifications, PPC style, but his gunfights, he was basically point shooting, and it's, at certain ranges, that's, I'm not advocating, I'm not taking a public position on that one way or the other, but as well as I do, there's some boogeymen in the training community where people don't want to go.
Sure.
Because, you just don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, it's like that a lot.
Yeah, so, red dots and whatever. So, you know what? Speaking of cops, I guess we'll talk about this on pod. Dude, we had a Beretta 1201 police trade-in shotgun coming to the armory, and you haven't seen it yet? Dude, this thing, I mean, for a police trade-in, looks great. I mean, it looks great. I mean, it's fantastic looking. So it'll be interesting to pull that out and compare it to like an M1 Super 90, because they're basically the same shotgun.
Oh,
But, you know, an M1 Super 90 is like a, you know, $800, $900, $1,000, depending if you want one H&K marked. I'm seeing them as high as, for some reason, $2,000, which nobody's getting that.
That's crazy. But
the 1201, I think, is the same gun. I'm curious to kind of, the furniture looks a little different, but I think they're the same shotgun. So we'll do a video on it.
yeah, I'm actually shocked when you said it was in relatively decent shape. Usually those shotguns are pretty beat up at least on the outside.
It's basically got it's got some rack marks on the anodized aluminum finish, but not any major wear. The plastic, there's no major dings, or it looks like it's spent most of its career just maybe gone out a couple times and did for maybe a few years, but it did not spend 20 years on the street. This shotgun is fantastic. It's got an extended shot tube as well. We haven't checked it how much it holds, but it's ghost rings, extended mag tube. It's like, damn, this is a nice gun.
Yeah, no, it definitely. I mean, and
super light too. I bet it kicks like a mule. I'll bet this gun kicks like a son of a bitch. I mean, you can just tell. It's a gun to carry, but it's not one to shoot. Like,
you don't want to take
horse.
You don't want to go sporting clays with it.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting. I want you to take a look at that when you get a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will.
And so apparently last night you were working. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Oh, there's a Freudian. Donald Trump announced his Supreme Court justice, and it's this Judge Kavanaugh guy, and apparently I know he's a Washington D.C. district court guy, but apparently he is he's apparently pro-gun, which I don't know this, but some of our readers made comments on our Facebook page saying that he has written decisions saying that the banning of, quote, assault weapons is unconstitutional. I think he said gun registrations were unconstitutional as well. So I'm happy to hear that.
I don't know. I can't say one way or the other because I really don't know. I haven't really looked into the guy. I don't really know anything about him.
I don't know that much about him either. I ended up staying up and watching the rollout with him at the White House, and I will say this: it was pretty impressive. He did a really good job, talking about his family, and he did a good job. He kind of just his initial presentation. I mean, on that alone, unless he's like, unless he shows up at a Senate hearing and goes batshit crazy, there's really no way anybody's gonna be able to vote against him.
Oh, they'll vote. The Democrats will vote against him anyway.
Well, yeah. A couple won't. I mean, McCain's already come out and said he supports the decision, so that gives them. McCain was always kind of like, well, is he gonna support it? Hell, if McCain even makes it back to Washington to vote, but they were counting on McCain because McCain, he won't support anybody that supports some of the enhanced interrogation stuff, which is perfectly fine.
Whatever.
But Manchin's in West Virginia is in a pickle. Tester in Montana is in a pickle. Is that Montana or Wyoming? Where's John Tester at? He's in a pickle.
I know McAuliffe Terry McAuliffe out of Virginia is going crazy.
Well, I think he's governor.
Yeah,
he's
no,
yeah, he's Terry McAuliffe. Oh my God,
he's a Democrat.
That guy.
I mean, he
used to work for the Clintons.
It's a simple case of the Democrat. Just it's a Trump nomination. He's got to go crazy.
Well, apparently last night, before Trump announced the pick, some of the media outlets were preparing their chyrons and their headlines, and they mistakenly released them. And they already were saying Trump's pick is controversial. And it's like, he could have been like, I'm announcing freezer meat as the next Supreme Court justice. And it's like, controversial. It's like, how the hell do you know he's controversial? I mean,
yeah, trust me, I'm controversial. Yeah.
Apparently, you probably haven't because you were working. Shannon Bream is from Fox News.
No,
she's a little blonde girl. She has her own show. Because they basically had to gut half their staff because they'd had zipper problems. Yeah. But she was doing a live shot from the Supreme Court, and if you've ever been to Washington, where it's right next to right behind the Capitol building. Mm-hmm. Like you could walk across the street, and apparently she had to bail. She said it got to be so. She said it felt like it was getting unsafe. They bailed her segment. They bailed. She ended up having to head out. They're like, I can't do live shots from here anymore. Because I think she has the 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock. She has a slot. So she has her own hour on Fox at night. And they end up having to bail because they thought they were going to hurt her.
Really? And
that probably won't get any coverage. Oh. And here's the thing. The people that were outside the Supreme Court protesting, it was Planned Parenthood and one other group. Who was it? Was it Move On? Planned Parenthood and somebody. But it was like, really? Getting violent, huh?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. But look, I mean, that's the modus operandi for the left these days. It's, it's you have to be tolerant of us, you have to do this, you have to do that. But if we don't like you, it's okay to harass you and get violent. Just like that jackass down in Texas who stole that 16-year-old kid's mega hat. Did you hear?
Oh, dude.
It's like, okay, so, it's like, I don't know, 2 a.m. They're all in a Waffle House or Whataburger hamburger.
I don't think it was 2 a.m. It was a Whataburger, and I think it was in the middle of the day. I mean, I could be wrong. But.
I don't know. But regardless, there's these kids sitting there, wolfing down a burger, and this jackass goes up and steals the one kid's hat, goes ape shit on them, throws a drink in their face. Of course, it's all caught on, on film.
It's on tape. The other kid was videotaping it, and it's probably on security camera too.
So the guy was promptly arrested. He was fired from his job. When anything happened, he's a bartender, which means he's pretty much of a bum anyway. No offense to bartenders. I know very successful bartenders, but he wasn't even apparently like a full-time bartender,
Yeah. The most successful bartenders I've ever known have always been attractive women. They normally make bank. They make a lot of money. They do good.
Best bartender I ever knew was a guy named Scotty. Obviously, it was a guy. And you remember that crazy ass Tom Cruise movie where he was a bartender? I don't know.
Yeah, and they used to do all the flipping and all the stuff over.
He could do that kind of shit.
Oh God!
And he made tons of money. But anyway,
he was trying to compete with all the pretty girls.
Well, yeah, But anyway, digress. So anyway, but it's like, okay, if anyone would have walked up to a Barack Obama supporter and ripped an Obama hat off their head and threw a drink in their face, that would be on MSNBC. It'd be on CNN. They'd be a white supremacist, KKK, neo-Nazi, right-wing, crazy wackadoo. But you know what? Maxine Waters is like, let's go out there and fuck with these people. It's okay to bother them while they're having dinner. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
Well, you know what? A couple good points. And we warned about this a long time ago. You know, if you think, I'm real big on this, and it was before cameras, and it just happens to dovetail into the whole camera thing. But how people behave when they think nobody's looking is a big thing for me. And if you think you are in the universe and you're not being recorded and you're going to get away with something, you are truly whistling past the graveyard.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about this many times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But look, here's the thing. If you look at the liberal media and look at the Democrats, you know, they honestly think they're going to take the Senate. I don't think any of them really, and maybe Maxine Waters thinks they're going to take the House, but I don't think any real grounded Democrat thinks they're going to take back the House, but they all think they're going to take back the Senate come November. But I'll tell you what, I got news for you. I think it's going to be the same as, as the general election when everyone thought Hillary was going to landslide this thing. I'm telling you what, I think the Democrats are going to lose. I think they're going to lose big on the midterm.
There's some indications, like the biggest indicator. This is now we're getting into policy stuff. If you're not a if your person obviously cares about politics, whether you're Republican or Democrat, but you want to know if the media is telling you the truth, like, you know, whether Fox News is just giving you spin or whether MSNBC is giving you the spin. Here's the best way to tell which way things are going. There's always one survey statistic poll, and it's called the generic ballot poll. And so what you do is historically, if you have a generic, let's say you have like two candidates in whatever race, and say like Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. And what you do is you can poll them head to head, but then you break that out, and then you poll Hillary Clinton versus a generic Republican, and you poll Donald Trump versus the generic Democrat. And typically a generic Republican against a generic Democrat is normally the Republican is down by 12 points. Right now, a generic Republican is up. And in probably since the times of Reagan, we haven't seen that. It's that a generic Republican up in a poll on any for theoretical ballots never happens. And it's astounding. And there's a good chance that the Republicans are going to pick up. They're going to pick up seats in the Senate. They really are. They're going to pick up seats.
Yeah, I firmly believe that.
Tester's in trouble. Manchin's in trouble. Is it McCaskill is in trouble? She's up? I think she's up. She may be in trouble. What the hell else was it? I'll tell you what, the Democrats have lost. I mean, how many times can we say this? They've lost their minds. You know, this Supreme Court thing, first of all, it's weird. It's weird. Like now, Justice Kennedy, like the liberal media, they've been calling him a traitor. How dare he do this to us? That's the first thing they're doing. Now they're coming out and they're saying, now they're starting to blame Obama. They're like, God damn it, Obama. If you had fucking governed from the left the way you said you would and quit trying to fucking compromise, no drama Obama, and, you know, instead of doing Merrick Garland and trying to get that shit passed, you should have like ran through a bunch of crazy lefties. And it's like, wait a minute, Allegra Kagan and Sotomayor, it's like, hello, why is Latina?
Yeah, exactly.
Why,
But
yeah,
look,
why is Latina?
Look, the truth is, it's the left has gone so insane. I mean, it's really hard to even actually. God, I hate to actually hear myself say this. It's actually kind of hard to blame this on Obama because the left leadership right now is just totally batshit crazy and they're off the rails.
Well, hey, I told you I was at the funeral and there was this woman and she was, we're all getting introduced around the different people and I mean, I don't, like all the family and all that. I don't know all those people. So they're like, well, how do you know Marky? Are you family? Like, oh, and they, talked about like, the professional relationships and guns and all that stuff. It's like, and she looked at me and she was, not a young woman, probably in her 50s or maybe 60s. And she was a teacher. And she looks at me and she goes, I bet you like Trump because you like guns. And I'm literally like, fuck me. I don't want to do this here. So I'm trying to like, well, I'm not really initially would have thought that. I'm trying to like soft shoe this. Like, Trump's a New York business guy. He's kind of crass. He's not really, maybe not the kind of guy I would have traditionally have thought. I mean, before I could get all of that out, she goes, I love Trump. She goes, I love Trump. And I love everything about Trump. And she starts going on and on and on about Trump. And I looked at her and I was like, okay, since we're being honest, I said, obviously I love Trump too. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. And I said this in front of a bunch of their family and stuff. I said, I did not expect Donald Trump to get the hippie vote. And she goes, I am a hippie. And she goes, somebody's got to stand up for this country. And I'm like, well, you know what? The Donald Trump Republican Party is a big tent party, and we agree. And this woman is like a lifelong educator, liberal, hippie person. Nothing against her, but she didn't say, well, I voted for Trump because I had to, or I'm not really a communist, or I had to vote on the economy. She was raving about Donald Trump. And she's like a straight up hippie. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting that this woman, and I guess I'm saying that point to make this point. If you start looking at the media, I don't know if you've seen it because, you've been, but there's all these like former libs and former Democratic people and gay guys and gay women and all these people that they've always been libs. And they're still consider themselves, liberal.
Yeah.
They're for gay rights, whatever. That's all fine. Uh-huh. But they've all left the Democratic Party because they're like, I'm not a goddamn crazy communist, and this is nuts, and I support Donald Trump. And the media is trying so hard to cover that shit up. Because I remember when Donald Trump was initially running before the election, because I was kind of talking to a lot of the black folks in our groups, and I was like, man, a lot of black people like Donald Trump. A lot of black people like Donald Trump, and it was more than what the media was saying. I was like, this is interesting. Black people like Donald Trump. And I was like, this is real.
Well, I mean, look, a lot of people like Donald Trump, and the thing is, and of course, I never pass up the opportunity to say I told you so. But, I kept telling you before the election, Trump's going to win this. And you're like, I don't know. He's got to do, and I'm like, no, trust me, Trump's going to win this. The polls are wrong. And it turns out
you were 100% correct. I would never, it was twofold. I never allowed myself to believe that Trump was actually going to win this. And I never allowed myself to believe that, that even that night, I was like, I'm going to bed. I'm not, even like the polls were, they were kind of hopeful. as I was going to bed. And it was like, I am not going to stay up all night and wait for things like goddamn Wisconsin and fucking Pennsylvania to fucking save us. I'm like, I'm not doing this, because when I get up tomorrow, whatever happens going to happen, and it's going to be fucking Hillary. And I woke up, I couldn't fucking believe it.
Yeah. Well, it's shocked. Like, I mean, God, I don't remember if it was NBC or ABC. It was one of the big three. They were so out of wits when basically after everyone had called Florida for Trump, they still wouldn't call Florida. And they're sitting there going, well, Broward County's only has 93% reporting, and there's still a possibility. And it's like, give it up. Give it up. He won the state. I mean, it was crazy because everyone was grasping at straws. But the thing is, with all the polls, the problem is they were polling all the people that didn't like Trump. The people that did support Trump weren't taking any polls. So they virtually unpolled. So everything like Hillary was going to kick ass, and wrong.
Well, it's just like with Barack Obama. There were a lot of people. They were asking people if they were doing the exit. They call them exit polls, where they'll try to poll people as they walk out of the polling station, and people will give who they voted for. And what was happening with Obama was people were walking out of polling stations, or they were telling people that they didn't say they were going to vote for Obama, but they were. But that was happening even double for Trump. There were people that were walking out saying, I voted for Clinton, or I didn't vote for Trump, and they sure as fucking did. And it's called the underpoll, and there was a ton of them. And that was a considerable. There is truly a silent majority that supports Trump. They do it in private. They don't stake out positions publicly because they don't want to get hammered, but privately they're like, I'm not a goddamn communist, and this is crazy. Hey, I wanted to mention this. Did you see? I don't think it was Mitch McConnell has been accosted twice now by the crazy hippies. At a restaurant, he was accosted, I think once in Georgetown and once in Louisville. And in Georgetown, his wife is Elena Chow. She used to be the transportation secretary. I don't know if she is now. But they went up there and they tried to, say some shit about her or about him. And did you see the video? She got in their face. She's like, you leave my husband alone. I tell you what, again, if it had been a liberal, a leftist person, and that was Elaine Chow, it would have been, yet she persisted. She got up in these people's face, and they weren't prepared for it. She's this little Asian looking, woman. And, we both have seen Mitch McConnell. He's a little dude. He's Mitch McConnell. When you see Mitch McConnell, you're like, damn. I thought she'd at least be 5 feet tall. I mean, he's short. And his wife is, Chinese and Chinese descent, and she's short too. But man, she got up in their face. It's pretty impressive. She wasn't scared of any of these fuckers, and nobody picked it up because she's on the wrong team.
Well, sure.
I thought that was interesting.
Oh no, and here's the thing, all your liberals out there, your liberal supporters, get pissed off when everyone talks about fake news, and they make fun of the right, calling, oh yeah, everything's fake news if you don't like it. But here's the thing, this is a simple case of fake news. Okay, if they don't like something, they don't cover it. Well, yeah. It's fake news. Oh, well, this is a story and we have an unnamed source. Well, who's your source? Well, we don't name our sources. Well, bring your source out. If this is a true story, Tell us who told you. You know, bring the source out. Don't make up a story and claim it to be a protected unnamed source. That's bullshit. You know, it's and the truth is,
the media tries to drive the story by writing. What they do is they write a story, they cite unnamed sources, and they trying to drive a reaction out of people to drive things in a certain direction. That's what they do.
Yeah, and
it's bumper ball.
People are getting tired of it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, speaking of crazy, check this out. Remember how Joe Biden came out and talked about taking the shotgun on the porch and shooting it in the air and running people off?
For sure, because everyone knows that's how you run away bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that and racking your shotgun. But you know, the best gun school I ever went to, I showed up. Here's a shotgun class. Get out of my lawn. Bam. It was a 5-minute class. Well, a candidate, this guy, Ben Jealous, you may remember that guy's name. He's running for governor of Maryland. He has come out and staked a position. He wants to ban shotguns now.
Why?
Because that's goddamn next.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I'm bringing that up to bring up this point. There's a story coming out of one of these places in the Northeast. Some little town has some ordinance, and these people, they bought a Ford F-100 pickup truck. You know, like a nice truck. Like, I think it's a project truck, or they're doing whatever. But anyway, it doesn't fit in the garage of some little house they have, so they have parked it in their driveway. And there's an ordinance in this town that says you're not allowed, if you have a pickup truck, you must, again, they're not saying piece of crap, jalopy, something on bricks in your yard. They're saying if you have, like, how old's my truck? Like if you have a 2016, mine's not that new, a 2016 Toyota Tundra pickup truck, you cannot park it in your driveway. You have to park it in the garage because we don't want to see pickup trucks. And that sounds so batshit crazy, but here's the thing. That's the same part of the country where they're talking about banning shotguns. And that's coming next, too. They want to ban, because here's the thing. Shotguns in Europe are like, you know, they consider shooting somebody with a shotgun as like cruel. But there's now talk, I've noticed this in some of the car collector community, like the exotic car groups, people. Because, you know, I know a fair amount of high dollar people. And they're, dude, I heard this week. They are talking about in the future, like they're planning how they buy cars. Because, you know, like people that buy, you know, like, oh, I got a Ferrari, I got a whatever. And there's different cars that people will buy. Oh, this car is so rare because it was in a movie, or this car is so rare, it gets collectible, but it's a race car. Oh, but this car, it's rare and collectible, but it's street legal, or you can, you know, you can drive it as a daily driver. It's now suppressing prices because they are expecting in countries around the world, particularly in Europe, and they say it's going to come to the U.S., that these people are going to pass ordinances banning the driving of like Ferraris and V12s and all these supercars. And they're not given the reason why. Like, is it environmental? Is it noise pollution? Is it using not enough gas? You know, is it? They're not saying what it is, but apparently this is a thing, and the hippies are going to start trying to ban sports cars. Think about that. That's coming. It's apparently coming in Europe, and if it starts in Europe, you know they're going to try it again. That sounds nuts. But there's a guy in Maryland right now who says we're going to ban shotguns. Because it used to be, if you need a gun to defend yourself, get a fucking shotgun. No one needs an AR-15. That used to be the fucking argument.
Yeah, that's true. Well, but Maryland's already banned the AR-15, so shotguns are next. Which basically, and I don't know if they banned the AR-15, to be honest with you. They may not have. But 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 that was their whole thing. Oh, yeah, we don't want to take your guns away. We just don't think you need military grade guns. So let's ban the AR-15. But but ultimately, at the end of the day, they do want to ban your guns.
Well,
And
see,
this,
but
this is a case where that's coming true.
Well, that's always the argument that I've made why the 86 Hughes Amendment, the banning of any new NFA items on the registry was a mistake. Because here's the thing, nobody could create the argument for a quote assault weapon unless they actually were able to ban or get a major restriction against real machine guns. And that's the same argument that I make for for like the 50 BMG Barretts or 50 caliber rifles. A lot of people have no use for 50s. They're expensive, $3 to $5 a shot. The overpressure on some of these guns is just like, damn. They weigh 30 fucking 40 pounds. I mean, look, I get it, but here's the problem. Something has to be at the frontier. Something has to be at the extreme. Do you know why we allow 50 caliber centerfire rifles in this country? Because 51 caliber is controlled. And here's the thing: if you let them ban the 50s, guess what's next? 375, 375 Godzilla's next, and then 375 Chi-Tac, and then after that it's 338 Lapua, and then after that it's it's anything.
Your 416 Rigby's, all your bigger calibers, they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, no one needs a gun that ballistically can perform past 1,000 yards. It's like this. It never stops, and it's like fucking, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these, like all these gay guys, and all these, like the whole. What's it called? Have you heard about this thing called the walk away? Have you heard about this? The walk away movement?
No.
You may be the last person to hear about this. Seriously, okay. This is so big but it's not getting covered by the press at all. And it's like Twitter is obviously pro Dems, right? They restrict Republican conservatives or anything, Trump or whatever. Well, there's a movement it was started by some gay guy, and he's been on some of the news outlets talking about this. Basically, what I was saying before, he's like, he basically said, I voted for Hillary. He's like, I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but what's happened since January of 2017 and today, it's gotten so crazy. He's like, I'm out. I'm joining the Republicans.
Yeah. I've heard of this. Yeah.
And so then, like Candace Owens with the black community, so they're all doing this hashtag. It's called #WalkAway, and they're giving all these reasons why you need to walk away from the Republican or from the Democratic Party, and from these crazy communists that are going to get you all killed. And it's this huge movement. And if you look at the Twitter trending hashtags or trending things on Twitter, if you search for how many things are like, how many walk away hashtags are there? There's so many, it should be in the trending Twitter list, but it never shows up. It might even be number one. It should be number one, but it's not. And it's this huge movement of all these people that are like, this is nuts. All these crazy people, they want to do all this crazy bullshit, Yeah. So anyway, it just interesting. So I didn't know if you'd heard about the walk away or not. So
yeah. Well, but did you hear that a nun who works for Missionaries of Charity, which was founded by Mother Teresa?
Oh fuck yeah!
Has been arrested for trafficking babies.
Yeah, baby.
120,000 rupees buys you a baby.
Yeah.
Which breaks down to about $1,700. I mean, she really needs to come to the United States because she can get more than $1,700 for a baby.
Here's the thing: on the border on the Mexican-Arizona border, you can get a baby for about $6,000. She's really undercutting herself.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And hey,
The going rate for a baby on the Mexican American border is $6,000.
hey, look, a brown baby in India, brown baby on the Tex-Mex border, same thing.
Same thing.
I know
did you hear about this happened last week? There was ICE and Fed, all the ABC 3-letter agencies showed up in some neighborhood and they hit this house. I don't know if it was a no-knock warrant because I don't think I saw TAC guys, but it was a heavy hit. And they hit this house in this neighborhood. And so there's all the alphabet soup jackets are everywhere. And so all the neighbors, they all come out with their cameras and they start protesting. And they're complaining about ICE, and they're complaining about nobody's illegal, and they're complaining about this isn't America, and Donald Trump, and rounding people up in camps, and we got to shut down ICE, and we got to shut all this down, and just going on, and like literally the news media showing up, they're literally being recorded and broadcast on the networks saying all this shit, and then it comes out, oh, yeah, this was a child trafficking ring. We just rescued a bunch of people, and they're like, wah, wah. I mean, it's fucking awful.
Well, that's because they make shit up. I mean, they see something like this going down and they just automatically assume that this is what it's got to be. They make shit up. And again, it goes back to the whole fake news thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, because you don't like someone or certain politics, just make up your own narrative. And I mean, you would think after they get, beat up all the time over making it up, you think they would learn.
Nope.
But apparently they don't.
You know what? We're going to talk about, I guess we'll try to wrap this one up. Did you get a chance to see Sig Sauer has picked up, the Army has ordered a bunch of weapons from Sig Sauer, and it's not the P320, it's all these rifles. Did you get a chance to see any of that?
Yeah, I did.
Like, they're ordering like...
they're ordering like the 416, the MCX,
they're ordering shorty, like the MCX in 5.56, the shorty subgun 5.56 AR. They're ordering 308 ARs. They're ordering, I don't even know, like the pistol. What's the pistol? The 2022, or I don't even know what the hell that is. I've seen the number.
That's I believe one of their little pocket rocket guns.
Oh.
And they're picking up. They're also picking up a silencer.
Oh, they're buying suppressors.
Yeah, they're buying suppressors from SIG, or they ordered some. So yeah, it's it's a pretty decent contract.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's like 1,000 of these, 500 of these. I mean, it's like, who is this for? I mean, maybe it's CID, maybe it's, I don't think it was SOCOM. Like, again, it could be, who knows? But, I mean, it just was interesting. It also brings up the interesting point. What's considered military issue now? You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, I mean, like they've always used the 228. The Department of Defense has bought the 228 SIG for years, or they did.
Check this out. When we were talking about this off pod, we're talking. We were talking. And I said, I wonder if they're going to pick up any of the SIG optics. And
the red dots.
Well, check this out. Apparently, they have picked up a small batch of can't talk. They picked up a small batch of SIG optics for their designated marksman rifles.
Okay, so that's an actual magnified optic then.
It's the Tango 6.
Tango 6 is, I'm not that familiar. I thought the Tango 6 was just a regular red dot. I don't know.
Look, I don't know. See, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. See, from what I understand, SIG doesn't make these themselves. They make it, from what I've read, and I don't know this for a fact because I haven't looked into it deep enough, but the company that makes these for SIG and slaps their name on them is, I think it's called like ITAC or something like that. But from what I understand, I think these things are made in China.
Oh. Well,
and the Tango 6 is a 1-to-6 power optic.
Oh, okay.
So, but again, I could totally be wrong on these things being made in China. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind having like a 1-to-6 to put like on the to put on some of the rifles that we need to shoot on video, like some of the reference gun, like the Robinson or maybe the A4, and for like 223 guns, just to play with them like in a DMR roll. And I wouldn't mind having like a red dot from SIG that we could use as a floater to put on different guns, just to let's try this one out, shoot this one a little bit, not to just to basically make it kind of like a floater gun for the reference collection, not obviously like a work thing. So that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like,
look, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm a SIG fanboy, and I don't really pay attention to their optics because they're fairly new in the optics game anyway. And it's like whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when you start getting into what kind of optics they have and all their names and their powers and all that crap, I don't know shit about it because I honestly don't follow it because I don't care. But from what I understand, they do, supposedly they have some higher end optics, like in the like $2,000-$3,000 range MSRP.
Mm-hmm.
I believe those are like regular rifle scopes. I don't know.
Well, the company that owns SIG is the same company that owns Blaser, and Blaser has introduced a line of optics, the binoculars, I think a red dot, and I think some magnified optics as well. And they're made by some. It's not. I don't think it's Optronica. I think it's a company that they own in Germany that makes optics for a bunch of people. It's apparently a well-regarded company, but it's not a company that's a brand. They don't function. They're more like an OEM manufacturer. They don't sell, like, I think this is going to come as a surprise to a lot of people. Like, I heard from some people that we work with, like, they were saying that Night Force doesn't make all their optics either. Like they're getting it from some of them. They're getting from other people. So it could be related.
I've heard.
But you know what? But the thing is, like, if it's the same company, I'm curious to look at, like, say the Blaser branded optics, because obviously Blaser's going to put, they're gonna make them too expensive because they're Blaser. Sure. They don't want to undercut their own brand. But if you do some research and you do a deep dive, and maybe you do some research and do a deep dive on the SIG optics, what you may find is an optic that, while it may not be a cheap optic, it may actually offer more quality and ability than its competitors, because they're trying to break into the market, and you may be able to get something. You're actually getting more for your money because they're trying hard to get a foothold.
And that very well could be the case. Mm-hmm. Again, I haven't really looked into it very deep because I'm like not even remotely interested in picking up a SIG optic.
Okay. I know we're going long, and you got to get to bed soon, and I got to get a bunch of stuff done before I go in for surgery. So we're gonna wrap this up with 3 quick hits, and you don't even have to respond to 2 of them, and we'll go from here. So I did a video a while ago talking about how, why I'm not an HK fanboy. I happen to run HK products, but I don't pray at that altar. And I think HK as a company has been run very, very poorly. And some of their issues that they've had is, it's well known. It's not like I was like breaking news that I was saying this, but as a business person, HK's made a lot of really dumb decisions over the past, say, 10, 12 years. And I'm just like, this is just retarded. Well, apparently H&K is in complete horseshit trouble right now. They're going to have to do another round of bailouts. Probably the owners of the company are going to have to put more money into it to keep it alive, because they're having financial trouble because they made some bad decisions. So we'll just leave that there for the H&K fanboys that like to cyber stalk me on this. But the second thing is, I'll do it out of order. My criminal police blotter story of the day is a guy. Have you ever heard of upskirting, where someone puts a camera real low so they can shoot video up some woman's hoo-hoo while they're walking around?
Yeah.
Well, apparently some guy had some camera strapped to his shoe, and he must have been some cheap Chinese camera with a cheap Chinese battery, and the goddamn thing exploded on his foot and injured him. So he was on public somewhere, and the camera exploded, so they had to call the police, and they're like, why is your foot bleeding or burned? And what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I had a camera on my toe because I was trying to walk. And it's just bizarre. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then here's the thing. You have always wanted, look, Freeze either wants to buy a deuce and a half, a ferret, Sherman tank, which we can't afford, or he's always like the ducks.
I like ducks.
Yeah, and the duck is the duck's
basically deuce and a half with a boat body.
Yeah, and when you see, and here's the thing, when you see a duck in real life, it's impressive how big it is. You're like, oh my God.
I know a guy that owns a duck.
Well, check this out. So, they run the ducks up in Boston. I think you've probably been in one in Boston.
Yeah. They have them here too, by the way.
Yeah, I've seen that. Well, apparently they were running a duck. They were running a duck around Boston Harbor, and then like a dead body floated by. And they're like, "Oh, tour's over. Welcome to Boston." And they're like, "Mommy." And they're like, fuck." So they had to fish old, I don't know, what would be a gangster? What would be a gangster in a
Whitey?
Whitey. They had to fish. That's right. They had to fish Whitey out of Boston Harbor, and a bunch of people got credit, like to go have some chowder somewhere, because their duck tour came to an abrupt end.
Nice.
It's also interesting when you ride in a duck, how big it is, how low it sits in the water. So if a body were to roll by a duck, it's pretty close to you. And it's probably only a couple feet. I mean, it's like, ooh. All right. So anything else before we wrap this one up?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, this wraps up episode 101 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any more pictures or photographs or references to news stories of anything we've talked about, go to our blog page, John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
See you later.